EP19 boy.
Timmy, how are you?
Lekker man, lekker.
Thank you. We missed an episode, but we are back in full force.
Yes. Some stuff happened, and didn't matter how we tried to arrange it, we couldn't get to it. But here we are. So we would have done a preview on Thursday for this weekend, and it was a good weekend. I think it's clear who the top clubs are.
Yeah, top club.
Our top club. I feel there were two standouts for me. To be honest, in the weekend. Disappointed, obviously, with the Bulls result.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that, but yeah.
It was still overall was still a good weekend of rugby. In both the EPCR and the Champions Cup. Obviously the best of the best, like we've discussed previously, all getting together, and showcasing, what rugby is all about. The Moomish team for me of the week would be Glasgow, right?
Yeah, well, we'll get there. I've got a lot to say about that game. I watched a shitload of rugby this weekend, and I think it is very, very clear who's going to win it. I think we might as well start giving out the trophies already. But yeah, I think let's just jump straight into it.
Yes, let's go.
So, Liz, you want to start with the Challenge Cup or Champions Cup?
Doesn't matter. Let's start with the EPCR.
Okay, so the first game of the EPCR was Connacht versus Racing. Racing did edge it 43-40, beat him at 3 points. Neither of the teams are really on the top of their respective domestic competitions. And I don't really think that Racing will win the Challenge Cup. But still, well done, Racing. And then the next game was Lyon, who beat Ospreys. Lyon, the same team that knocked out the Sharks. Ospreys is not an easy team to win at home. They've beaten some big teams at home before. So the French teams are really proving the quality of the top 14. So well done to them.
Yeah, I think to quickly have a look, the Racing versus Connacht game was interesting. 83 points in total in that match. I think it was just a showcase of bad defensive teams playing against each other.
Yeah.
Ospreys at home, they did took Lyon close though. 18-20. I mean, it was a close game. And then moving on, Edinburgh versus the Bulls.
What a disastrous game. It's very, very sad that we don't have any South African teams in either the Challenge Cup or Champions Cup. Our heart was sore about the Champions Cup, and now it'll even be broken further, with the Challenge Cup. And I actually thought the Bulls were going to go all the way.
We in the last episode we did say it was going to be a Bulls Bath final, in our opinion, and I still maintain and I believe that I said it would either be one of those teams, and I'm going to stick with that. Unfortunately, at the time of our recording, Bath is still playing against Leicester.
They are winning.
Yeah, they're in the lead, 31-19 at the 38th minute.
So, a lot can change.
Yeah, a lot can change, but I think the EPCR is definitely going to go to Bath. Yeah, I really think so. They definitely seem to be a bit more in control of the games. I was very sad about the Bulls. They made a fight back at the end, but it was just way too late, and it was a match they shouldn't have lost. It was.
No, to me, I think the first half was what cost them. I think if you look at, I think Jake White took a bit of a gamble with his starters. With Johan Keegan, who actually looked very good in the previous round. I think that is what cost them at the end of it. James Kirsten almost got a red card for almost getting a second yellow card which would have obviously resulted into a red card. He didn't play too bad actually. Zach Berger got a stupid yellow card and knocked the ball on twice before that, I think, or that was his second knock on. Stravino Jacobs, he's got fire, but I mean, he also made a few silly errors. But David Creel was brilliant. David Creel is really, really showing his worth. I told you, I know how much the volleys or the people from Pretoria really do like David Creel. I always thought he was a good player. I just couldn't understand the hype around him. But he's really, really showing it. Cyril Peterson, who we hyped up last week, didn't look too hot for me. I think that he had one of the quieter games. But who really did look good for me was Canon Moody, who came up I think in the 44th minute. I think just after halftime, the Bulls made a lot of changes, and then Edinburgh, I think they scored one quick try after halftime, and then the momentum shifted. And I honestly thought the Bulls were going to pull it through. We had players like David Gill mentioned, Kane Moody, Johan Goosen, who looked very, very good for me. Marco van Staden. I just think that the Bulls just conceded too many points in the first half, and in all honesty, the Edinburgh came to play. They started with so much intensity, and then they are losing, or they have lost, a lot of their big names as well. The one from the Merwe, but one of them, or probably the biggest one. So yeah, well done to Edinburgh. It's really, really sad for us or for us South Africans, that we don't have any more South African representation. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think for me the big thing is, especially with the EPCR, it's like the showcase of, we don't play round ball rugby. It's not like soccer. The ball bounces in different directions, and it's about the capitalization of that. And I think Edinburgh capitalized on a lackluster Bulls performance, and they did it well. And just like that, Edinburgh is still in contention. The Bulls are flying home. But coming back to the same discussion we had in our last episode, where we did say that, so as South African teams, we are in that unique position now where we've got a lot of good rugby players, but are our players overplayed, and our developing depth in our squads not utilized enough? Or is it just a situation of Jake White went, okay, listen here, realistically, for us to win the EPCR, it makes our year a lot longer. So we're gonna go in this match with the intensity to win, or in the intention to win, but it's not our primary focus, because our primary focus is still going to be the URC, which I think for me is sorry, I'm gonna say it is bullshit. Because I feel that if you win a competition like the EPCR, you win a competition like the Champions Cup, you are that's a different trophy than the URC, because you lift a trophy where you can almost with honesty say that you are at that stage one of the best clubs in world rugby. So I think it's a tricky situation that we are finding ourselves in, and we're looking again at the traveling, we're looking at the distance away from home and stuff. We look, Edinburgh plays against Leon, for example, in the semi-finals, right? Or Connacht plays Leon in the semi-finals, whatever, however that works out. They fly home after the match, and they home 2 hours, 2-3 hours after that game. Where for South African, the South Africans, I really think that the traveling is starting to take its toll. When it came to the EPCR and it came to the Champions Cup and all that, the South African teams did have a lot of traveling, because when it started coming to the playoffs and stuff, unfortunately they were not in the position to have a lot of home games. And for example, I do feel that the Bulls at home would have probably been a much more formidable side. And it's unfortunate that it worked out this way. But I do feel, I won't say I'm concerned after this match, but I do feel we've got a bit of a problem situation. I feel we're getting silly injuries in crucial players. And we'll discuss that. I think we should discuss that, after we've discussed the games. When we get to the later segments, because I know you mentioned you want to talk about Eben.
Yeah.
and we're talking about Fouchier and stuff. And I feel we need to have a look at, when we get to that. I'll give my 2 cents on where I feel we are with South African rugby.
Yeah.
But just as a final update, it's halftime, and Bath is leading Gloucester 33-19. So I doubt we'll mention that match again, because I think we're going to move on to the Champions Cup now.
Yeah,
And,
just a few points as well on the Bulls on your. So look, okay, there's a lot to to respond on. I think, I guess, coming back to your first point, I think Jake White honestly did try. I think if he wasn't going to at least try in this game, he would have sent down a second tier team. And he did stay in a very strong team, but they still couldn't get it done. I think maybe underestimated Edinburgh, and that's why he had a lot of the usual starters on the bench, which played well but just couldn't do it. And Edinburgh, they really were playing well. Secondly, the traveling, 100%. I think I've seen it a lot of people complaining about the traveling, and I do believe that the traveling is an issue. But to me, I feel like we should try and work around it. Or make a plan with it. I love rugby, and I know that we are overplaying our players, South Africans, because we play 12 months a year. I mean, I think if we have one weekend that we don't have any rugby, we don't know how to do with ourselves. It's very bad, or very good from my perspective. But it's their jobs. They could be accountants or policemen or whatever. They're rugby players. It's your job to play rugby every weekend. It's a privilege to be there. To represent your club / your nation eventually. How are we going to work around the traveling? I know that apparently next season, I don't know exactly how it works, but next season we are sort of partners in the Championship, Champions Cup, or to the European competitions, and there's going to be a massive financial boost, and a lot of the players will be flying in better tickets and better routes instead of stopping. So that'll probably obviously help us. Because I know that we're flying long ways around to try and save costs and whatever. Whereas from next season it'll be a lot better apparently. But the Bulls have been in Europe for 2 weeks now, so I don't know if it was the traveling. I just think that they weren't playing as well as they should have. Was it a case that they underestimated Edinburgh? Possibly, probably. I just think that first half they didn't have the intensity that they should have. And they were allowing, they were conceding tries like it was nothing. I think there was 3 or 4 tries that Edinburgh scored in the first half to the Bulls' 1 try in the first half. So I don't know what we're going to do, with traveling, but to me, it's unacceptable. I honestly think this was the Bulls' game. This is Edinburgh. No disrespect to Edinburgh, but they're far from one of the top teams. And if the South African teams want to even think about going up against one of the big boys like Leinster or Toulouse, these are the types of games that we should be smashing. Whether it's away or at home. We should have put at least 30-40 points in Edinburgh, and then we could start talking about swimming at the big boys. It's unacceptable. We need to do something. Honestly, we need to do something. The Bulls have an opportunity to win the URC. Definitely not impossible, but I think Jake White has a lot to look at on this game in the Challenge Cup, and a lot to work on.
Yeah, but okay, if we move on to the Champions Cup, and we look at the first game, of the weekend, Leinster massacring Glasgow Warriors 52-0. Do the Bulls honestly have a chance to win the URC?
I don't. To be honest with you, we'll get to Leinster now. But I've got a lot to say about Leinster. So yeah, that's it. I guess that's the last game. I think we're moving on to the Champions Cup now.
Yeah. So Leinster at Glasgow 52-0.
Fuck it. Can anyone beat Leinster? So firstly, I think it was off the ball, on the ball, whatever they were called. Was giving Jacques Nienaber a lot of shit. Saying that he's a bad influence on the Irish team. But he's doing miracles for Leinster. I mean, I can tell you that. This is second game in a row that they've keeping, and not weak opponents, but that they've keeping top tier opponents pointless, completely pointless, and put a number on them. I cannot see anyone beating Leinster. I'll be honest with you. I think Leinster go all the way this time in both comps. And Leinster were looking. The first 10 minutes or so, I actually thought, Glass, this is going to be a good game. It's actually very sad that it was a pushover game. I honestly thought that Franco Smith's team is going to go there, and I did think Leinster was going to win it, but I thought Glasgow was going to push them at least. And the first 10 minutes, it looked like they probably could have, pushed them close, and then Leinster just kept going. I cannot. I'd like to mention players in the Leinster team that look good. Sam Prendergast, I like to give him a lot of shit, but he looked brilliant. Jody Barrett looked fucking brilliant. I can literally list the whole team from 1 to 23. There was not one player that looked shit for me. Not one. Callan Doris with the most tackles, I think. He looked brilliant. Tide Byrne, who's been out for injury for how long? And Max Deegan, I'm actually so happy Max Deegan got a start. He was playing in that number 8 jersey when they smashed the Sharks or beat the Sharks in the Shark Tank during the URC. So yeah, I think Leinster are honestly they are the benchmark. We can jot it down, like I said, to their endless budget, their World Cup winning coach, or their All Black star that's just fucking unbelievably good, or the Springbok star that's unbelievably good. But I just think this is more than that. I think this is a culture thing. This is the fact that when we spoke about it before, it feels like they've got a game plan, and every single player knows exactly what that game plan is and how they're going to implement it. It's a well-oiled machine, and every single player is fitting like a perfect piece of the puzzle. To make that bigger picture, and honestly, I cannot see any team beat. Like I said, I think we might as well, stop the competition now, and just give Leinster their trophy.
No, I agree. I agree. It is like you say, well-oiled machine. Even James Lowe, much as I give him flack, he had a quieter game, but he was still, he looked good. And it comes down to that as well. We've given them a lot of flack about it, but it is something that it does pay off for Ireland. They pick a lot of players, play together at club level, they play together at level. So it does become a situation where your main part of your country's rugby is played from one club. So it does help. Does help. And well done to Leinster. I honestly think Leinster's going to win the Champions Cup, and I think they're going to be a very, very hard side to beat. The rest of the URC season as well, and we're getting close to that playoff section as well. Moving on for me, Bordeaux Beagles versus Munster. That was a bit of a surprise to me. The 47-29. I feel that Munster got a lot of points that they shouldn't have gotten.
100%. They're looking very bad.
Yeah. And I feel that the Beagles, although 47 is a formidable score, they allowed a lot of silly points to be scored by Munster, and all of a sudden, like we discussed it, we said no, it's not going to be the Border Beagles, it's not going to be Toulouse, it's not going to be Toulon, and then all of a sudden Leinster coming from left field, and now Leinster, like you mentioned, looks like the team that's not going to lose. So I, if I was the Border Beagles, I would be a bit worried. I don't think that's a convincing enough performance against Munster.
Look, I think the Border Beagles look brilliant on attack, and I think the first half was a real showcase of what they can be. And I foresee them making it to the finals, playing against Leinster in the finals. I don't think it's going to be Toulouse. I think it'll be the Border Beagles. Maxime Luku, Jason Statham looked brilliant. LBB looked brilliant. And if you look at the first half, they scored 4 tries to Munster's 0 tries. I think Munster only had a penalty kick in the first half. And I think they were even showing off at one stage. Just seemed like they were just scoring tries for fun. And I thought there was going to be another, destroy. They'll destroy Munster. And then it felt like they were sort of taking their foot off the gas. And also kudos to Munster. They were also fighting to try and get back into it. And they were fighting until the last minute, even though they knew there was no way for them to win. But I honestly think that's something that if the Border Beagles can sort of get that second half, as with as much intensity as the first half. They really will be a team that can probably push Leinster close, beat them. I don't think so. We do know Leinster can how they perform in knockout games. And in all honesty, if Leinster do lose in the finals against Border, I feel like it'll be unfair. Seeing the form they are and have been in. But anyways, yeah, I think if the Border Beagles can just work on that, they really will be a force to reckon. They are a force to be reckoned with. They are very, very dangerous on attack. They let that ball flow, and every now and then, the pass misses its player, and you can see whoever was supposed to catch the pass throws his hands up in the air and is very upset with whoever passed it, and they start blaming each other. But when the attack flows, it flows, and it feels like it's almost unstoppable. But yeah, I predict Border to go to the finals and probably lose to Leinster.
Yeah, no, for sure. Moving on, the only team that is not Irish or French was Northampton Saints versus Castries. And another spectacle. Though I don't read into this a lot, Northampton Saints beat Castries 51-16. Which is not like Leinster Glasgow, because Leinster, obviously Glasgow is for me a much more intense team than I would say with Castries, but still a victory that is going to probably raise some eyebrows when it comes to contention, because beating, you're still in a playoff situation, and going to a playoff situation and putting up 50 points, and your opposition doesn't even get to half of that. Does make a bit of a difference.
Yeah. How good is Henry Pollock though? Fuck it. Since he's made his debut for England during the Six Nations, that's sort of when he really got into my radar. And I feel like this guy is fucking good. Yes, he's good. He's really making. He's a loose forward, which is a highly contended position in the British and Irish Lions. And I honestly don't see why he shouldn't get a shot. He's so good. Unfortunately for the Saints, they are playing Leinster next in the semi-finals. Can they do it? Possibly. Will they do it? Probably not. But yeah, honestly, I think the Saints are also in very, very good form. And I feel like, they've got really world-class players. Even Finn Smith, it looks very good for me as well.
Obviously, I think looking at it from that perspective, with the class that they've got, the scoreline obviously makes sense for me. But next weekend or the next match they play for the Champions Cup, you're not in Wonderland anymore, because you are pretty much playing against Ireland.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them know that, but enjoy the victory now. You're still the team that scored the second most points in this weekend. Going 51, 51-16. It still means that only conceding 16 points mean you still only allowed 2 tries in that match. So let's say that's 1 try in the second half, 1 try in the first half, which is a good record by itself, and it's something to look forward to. Based on that, I can probably tell you one thing. Leinster's not going to run over the Northampton Saints. It's clear that they've got a good defensive side, but they've got a good attacking side, and looking at that, and we go back. Just want to go back one match. If you look at what Bordeaux did against Munster, they lacked in defense. Like you say, when it comes to playoff rugby, and you come to if you let's say they get into a position where they're playing Leinster, if the minute that they get that like massive start, they're going to take their foot off the gas. Leinster's going to punish them.
100%.
And I think that's something that they need to look at. I feel that the Northampton Saints, on that definition as well, will also punish somebody like Bordeaux. So they need to, I think Northampton Saints, I didn't see as a team that would be in contention. I didn't think they would be a team that was going to really do anything, marvelous or whatever. And all of a sudden, they might be a team that just has a chance to actually go there, and I wouldn't mind, because the Champions Cup and the EPCR have been, fantastic competitions for me, and
There's a lot of mismatches in them, though. I mean, a lot of teams. We're in the knockout stages of the competition now, and it just feels like a lot of teams are getting smashed with a lot more than they should be. So it feels like there's maybe a bit too many, probably top tier teams versus a lot of teams that probably are not that good.
well, they're not getting there just because people go like randomly. It is a merit system.
No, it's hard work, but still, I just feel like there's a lot of mismatches in this team. Leinster and Glasgow probably wasn't a mismatch. I mean, 1 and 2 in the URC. Leinster just made it look like a mismatch, but I still feel like there's a lot of teams getting smashed with a lot more than they should be getting smashed with.
Yeah, I think.
But anyways,
I think it does make what does make it interesting though, and I think, I look at it from a very different perspective, and I wish that African teams should maybe look at adopting this mentality as well. It's almost for me like the European sides are valuing Champions Cup and the or more. And the South African sides are valuing the URC more. And it feels like the Northern Hemisphere sides are using the URC for development. And playing full strength in the Champions Cup and full strength in the EPCR. And it feels to me almost like the South African sides are doing it the other way around. We can go South Africa world champions right now. There were times where we lost to Australia 52-0. It's I don't see that as a weird scoreline. It's sad considering that it's playoff rugby, but I look at it from the thing is Leinster 52-0, quality Leinster side. Jordy Barrett, 100%. You're looking at the old Kalen Doris. It was just that, like you said, it was like that harmony of play. I mean, you look at the Northampton Saints, Finn Smith, Pollock. You're looking at two of the younger talents that we discussed during the Six Nations. Two young players coming through the ranks of English rugby that are just going like, what, we're not just going to try.
And Trocchi, mustn't forget Trocchi. Warno Gastas, also very good.
They're making their stamp on rugby, I feel like Finn Smith, I feel like Eddie Pollock and stuff are names that we are probably going to mention in the podcast quite a few times in the future. Still, I mean, Pollock was like, just on the display that he put up. Then I felt it strong enough to put him in my team for the British and Irish Lions.
Yeah, I would have. I'll definitely put him in. But you made a very interesting point there. Okay, we will move on to the last game in a minute. Where you said that the Northern Hemisphere teams sort of value the Champions Cup / Challenge Cup more than the domestic competitions. But I think we as South Africans don't really appreciate it the way it probably should be appreciated. There's a lot of history in this competition, and I don't think that we realize what it means to them in the Northern Hemisphere teams. I wouldn't say that they're using the domestic competitions as I'm fairly certain Leinster takes both competitions very, very seriously. I think that the South Africans edge or take the URC a bit more serious than the Champions Cup, and that's only because we're only on our 4th season here in the URC. We're not too long ago we were playing Super Rugby, so I think as soon as we are well established in the URC, you probably will start finding South African teams taking this competition a lot more serious, and you can see it in many things. I mean, when I speak to rugby to many people during the day, a lot of them don't seem to too very interested in the Champions Cup, Challengers Cup, and they just want to talk about URC when the URC is starting again, which is next weekend. And even in the views, I feel like we get more views during the URC and the Six Nation episodes than we do with these, and I think that's because a lot of our viewers are South African and they don't really care about the champions, which is sad. And I'm fairly certain we will get there, eventually. But we still need to establish ourselves in our domestic competition first.
Yeah, I feel as well. I think we've gone and we've taken a situation where if we've got the Champions Cup, we've got the EPCR, we've got the URC and all these competitions, and we've kind of taken our true domestic cup, which is the Currie Cup and stuff, and we've kind of put it on the back burner. Which I also feel is sad because we mentioned the last episode teams like the Cheetahs and stuff that's looking at shutting down and closing doors and stuff like that, which is sad on itself. I do feel look, honestly, for me, and it's not dissing any of the competitions that is going on at the moment, but I miss Super Rugby. You know, I really miss I really miss Super Rugby a lot, and I don't see that this has really made our players be more, you know, less traveling and stuff, because we're traveling just as much as we did during Super Rugby.
Yeah, fuck yes, we did.
So, you know,
we used to watch rugby odd hours in the morning.
Yeah, I know. I understand there was a big time difference and all that, but the traveling time for the players was still the same.
Yeah, 100%.
And I feel that is our honestly, that is our weakness at the moment in the sense of, for us to be part of any realistic competition, you know, we either need to fly to Europe or we need to fly to the islands, you know, to Ireland and stuff, to Australia and stuff. And it does make it's a logistical nightmare, and it has started to show on our teams, but we'll get to that in a second. Last match, probably the match that most people was looking forward to. Toulon versus Toulouse, you know, the French giants versus each other, and did it deliver? I feel it did. I think it was a fantastic showcase for rugby. You know, 21-18, so it was also not a runaway for any one of them, and clearly both these teams wanted to go further in the competition.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I did think Toulouse were going to win. I feel like they should have won with a lot more. If you look at it, Toulon didn't even score any tries. I think, what was it, 18 points they scored? 18 points with only penalty kicks. And with the team that Toulouse have, you know, they are missing obviously Dupont, and you know that Dupont is you know, overall Dupont is you know, a massive part of that team. Yeah, but they still have a lot of very, very good players like Jack Willis, who scored a try, Intermac, Blair King on, Mauvaka, who I think is probably the best hooker in the world at the moment, Ramos, you know, so I don't know. I feel like Toulouse should have beaten Toulon with a lot more. They are playing the Border Beagles up next in the semi-finals. I think the Beagles take that. And remember, Toulouse are the reigning champions. You know, they played Leinster in the finals. If they beat Bordeaux, 90%, 95%, 99% chance that it'll be another Toulouse/Leinster finals, this time without Dupont.
Yeah. Well, look, this competition is still going to be there. You know, I'm going to continue watching it.
100%.
I'm looking forward to when that resumes. You know, to another two French giants facing each other, and then probably the best team in Ireland playing probably the best team in you know, in England. You know, so it's definitely going to be. It's going to be a spectacle. That weekend is going to be solid, and the same with the EPCR. I think there's going to be this competition is such a gripping competition, because it's like we said, out of nowhere, you know, all of a sudden Northampton Saints go and score 51 points in a playoff match. But
it is a brilliant competition. I know that both of us did say that we are missing Super Rugby. Super Rugby, which is funny that both of us agree about that, because we used to get smashed with Super Rugby, and I feel like we're a lot more competitive in the URC. Okay, not in the Champions Cup, obviously. But, you know, very, very seldomly the South African team is won in the Super Rugby. But yeah, it is a very good competition. It is going to go on a break now, and I think it's only back in late May or halfway through May or something. But I'm really, really looking forward to it. They really are leaving us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, no, I agree. Lastly, let's move on to the next thing.
News. Okay.
News, plenty more. What do you have for us, man?
So I've got only two topics to cover. Okay, well, so the first one is the fact that Neertling Forshia So during his URC game against Ulster, Nathan Kushi obviously received the red card for high tackle, even though he was crawling. And then the Stormers slash Neethling, they appealed the decision, and the decision stayed. So yeah, to me that's a massive shock. I think we spoke about it in our previous episode. I think that was definitely one of the decisions that the refereeing staff got wrong. I honestly don't understand how low Nathan Fushi would have been, and I feel like that was just a rugby incident. I mean, the guy was literally leopard crawling, so I don't know what else you should have done to avoid that. But yeah, I don't know what your feelings on it is, seeing that it is your team.
Look, I understand they want to promote a cleaner rugby. They want to do something that's a bit different. I get that, and I fully, I'm behind looking after players. Creating longevity in players. We look at 15 years ago, players were only, they were retiring at 30 because there were injuries. The game was a lot more unregulated. High tackles weren't seen as a offense other than a penalty and stuff like that. But where we are now, I looked at that tackle and I tried to remain as neutral as possible.
Yeah.
That wing was basically bent 90 degrees with his hips.
You see,
okay?
so he's getting charged.
Yeah,
he's getting charged for not wrapping, not the degree, which is also for me a shocker because I mean, to me it looked like he was clearly wrapping.
Look, that's what I'm saying. So clear indication, right, that he was trying to wrap. You look at that video 940,000 times. There's a clear indication that he was attempting a wrap on that player. But if you go and you take a ball weighing 130 kilograms and you throw a ball at it weighing 70 kilograms, the ball weighing 17 kilograms is going to deflect off that ball a lot faster and it's going to go a lot further. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you need to look at the consequential situation to that as well. Neethling Forshia was going to tackle this guy. At that stage, the Stormers number 4 was tackling him from the side. It was a rugby incident. Was it an ideal rugby incident? No, we don't want to see injuries. I would rather have the 15 best players playing for each side and have a spectacle than having injuries. But that wasn't a deliberate foul play. It was an accidental foul play. I can understand. Listen here, it was unfortunate. There was head contact, and you get a too-match ban. I fully understand that. I get that. Okay. But I think turning this into a spectacle now, because what this is doing now is it's displaying or showcasing the South African sides as being, dangerous sides to play against. And for me, it was accidental. That wing is probably 5 feet tall. He was bent down at his hips, and we discussed this. How do you win a rugby match at the moment? Okay, you bend 90 degrees with your hips, and you just run because nobody's going to be able to get low enough to tackle you.
100%.
Okay, so at what point are we going to go and say, as rugby fans, yes, are we promoting safe rugby? We want players to stay uninjured. We want players to be at their full best. I want to play the best Ireland side. I want to play the best Australian side. I want to play the best All Black side. I get that. That's something that we want to do. But alongside that, at what point are we going to go and say, listen, you guys, you are making it so strict now that we can basically play touch rugby?
100%.
But that's all I have to say on this.
clear rugby incident. Play on. Fuck it. It's a contact game. Every now and then someone's gonna get smacked in the head. Then the next one, which is very good news for me, is Ebenezer and Apelele Fasio set to return back for the Sharks. So we haven't seen Ebenezer for 4 months. I think the last time he played was against Exeter Chiefs. When they beat the Exeter Chiefs in the Champions Cup. Yeah, it was still in the early Champions Cup. And we haven't seen him since. He had a massive concussion, and he had some issues with his concussion. And then when he was set to return, he got a niggle in his knee during the Springbok alignment camp. And then Apelele Fasio had a very, very serious knee injury as well against your team, the Stormers. Him and Andre Esterhuizen went back. Obviously, Andre Esterhuizen has returned, but it looks like Fasio will also return this weekend. I'm very excited for that. You know, definitely. Eben is my favorite player of all time. And Apelele Fasio is way up there. You know, so I'm very, very excited. I think it's very, very needed. You know, the Sharks team. The Sharks probably will still find a way to lose. You know, I feel like they can have the whole Springbok team then and they'll still lose. You know, that's just how I feel about them sometimes. But yeah, but just seeing Ebenezer and Apelele Fassi back in action is going to make the weekend or the loss worth it to me.
No, definitely. You know, and it's obviously, I don't look at it from a club perspective. I'm looking at it from a Springbok perspective.
Springbok, yes.
You know, you've got your number one choice at number 4 back. And Eben is a player that doesn't really allow injuries and stuff to affect his gameplay. Apelele Fassi also, you know, probably our number one choice fullback at the moment, being back. Which is good because, you know, we're almost going into the June internationals and stuff where we have a few easy games, you know. That will be good for them to get some form in the remainder of the
100%.
URC, get into the first couple of box games, and you know, and play against I won't say weaker sides, but I'm going to say weaker sides in World Rugby, and just, you know, get your flow back, get your groove back, and whatnot, and then we'll work from there. But it is good to have both of them back, you know. Also, you mentioned Esterhuizen, he was back, you know, a week or two ago already, you know, and he's looking good. So probably at the moment our number one choice, you know, inside center. So it does help when we have this recovery of players and whatnot. And I mean, you look at the Stormers, they've also started getting a lot of their players back. You know, Damian Willems probably needs to get his form back a bit. Sasha obviously didn't allow that to affect him too much because he is looking good, you know. So it's good that, you know, across the board we're seeing a lot of our, you know, international players that we want to see playing for the Boks and stuff
100%
coming back into the mixes of their club franchises. And let's just hope they're fit enough and that they've been conditioned enough and stuff before they are thrown into matches. And allow them to, you know, stay there and go into the Springbok setup in when our June incoming series starts, and let's hope we can see these guys, you know, get back to the World Cup winning form that we have seen them in.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think let's end it off on that.
Definitely. Yes, and then we'll see all of you. We're gonna try and not skip an episode again, but you know, stuff does happen.
Life happens. So, life does happen.
So, but for now, we'll see you guys on Thursday. I believe we've got a URC preview coming up.
Yes. We're back in the URC. Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup will be shelved again. And then we can hopefully see some improved performances from our South African teams.
No, definitely. But all right, guys, we'll see you again on Thursday. Be safe. And
cheers.
Cheers, Brenty boy.
Bye, guys. Bye.